Welcome to our channel, JourneY MindS, History of Ancient Greece. We can divide ancient Greek history into four basic parts. 1. Greek Dark Ages. 2. Archaic Period. 3. Classical Period. 4. Hellenistic Period, Greek Dark Ages. The Dark Age lasts from about 1200 BC to 800 BC, and is called the Dark Age because there are no historical records about it, meaning we have no idea what happened within that period and what ideas and trends used to be. In about 800 BC, we first find the works and writings, works of Homer, and Hesiod, that is Iliad and Odyssey, etc., that result in the first time we have historical records, which we find out what ancient Greek thought was, which we then call the Archaic period, which lasts from 800 BC to 500 BC, from 500 BC to 323 BC, which is the date of Alexander the Great's death, begins a next period, the classical period in which Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle come. This period is a golden part of history in which Greek philosophy is promoted. The last period is called the Hellenistic period, which begins after the death of Alexander the Great, that is from 323 BC to about 146 BC, Archaic period. Common people have the impression that ancient Greek civilization belongs to the West, is also related, but Greek civilization would not have reached its peak if it had not been influenced by the East, especially the influence of the Assyrians, the Phoenicians, and Egypt, had a very profound effect. Rather, the Phoenicians were the first to invent the writing, and the Greeks also wrote the same from the Phoenicians. As a result of the writing, the documents that describe the Greek religious point of view were first prepared. Homer, and Hesiod, were two people who recorded these ideas and rituals in the style of poetry that was part of Greek civilization. Homer's works Iliad and Odyssey, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Works of Hesiod, works and days Theogony, Shield of Heracles. These works were for the people of ancient Greece, which today is the Quran for Muslims and the Gospel for Christians. For the first time in history, the Olympic was held at 776 BC. This is the date in which the Dark Ages end and a new era, the Archaic period. The distance begins. The gods of the Greeks. The Greek people were actually idolaters, polytheists, meaning they had several gods or gods they worshipped. They had Chuda, 14 deities, known as Olympian gods, and had another 370 deities who worshipped him. What used to be their Olympian god was that they had human-like characteristics. For example, they used to do evil and do good. Who was the king of the god means the greatest god was his name Zeus, and who was the brother of Zeus? His name was Hades, who stood just opposite him, and he lived in secret, underworld. Hera was the god of marriage, Aphrodite the god of love, Ares the god of bravery and war, Apollo the god of knowledge and light, Poseidon the god of the sea, and thus the different deity used to belong to different things. The Greeks believed that suffering comes to man in this world when people stop worshiping these gods. They believed that when humans ceased to worship these gods, the power of these gods diminished, and they were not interested in caring for humans. The Greeks also believed that the cause of war between humans, between two clans, two kingdoms, or two armies, was also due to a contradiction between the two gods. Classical period. The classical period begins in 500 BC. This was the period in which the new production force results in higher yields and greater prosperity. This is the period within which the population increases fivefold, and new literature, new arts, and new sciences are created as a result of new production and population growth. Among the political structures, there were small towns, and they used to have their own government. These small towns had no religion because people worshipped different gods and did not have a common religion, so it was not possible to create a religious state. There was no agreement between them, and they used to fight with each other often. The two most important states were Athens and Sparta, whose state structure stood primarily on the slave system. They actually enslaved non-Greeks, and they used to do their small and big work from them. This means that we can divide these societies into at least three sections. 3 types of classes. 1. Elite. 2. Independent people, or dumbest. 3. Slave. That is, there was a class known as the aristocracy, who were masters of slaves. What was the second class is called the free class, freemen, or the dumos in Greek. These were the people who were neither slaves themselves, nor had any slaves. The class below the dumos used to be slaves, who were actually living under the elite, aristocracy class. More than half of the people within Sparta were slaves and did both agricultural and domestic work. Athens is said to have had even more slaves, but the difference between Sparta and Athens was that the free class in Athens, demos, had a naval force, navy, in which the free people, demos, worked, who were neither of the slave class nor of aristocratic class. Since demos, had an important role in the navy, as a result he also had an important role in politics and state affairs. Of note is that the political system of Sparta and Athens was different from each other. The aristocratic class that was in Sparta occupied politics entirely, but on the other hand, there was a kind of compromise between the aristocracy and the demos in Athens, and it was as a result of this compromise that the political system was called democracy. Democracy is said to have been and played an important role for the demos in Athens. The point is also very important that slaves and women had no role in the alleged form of democracy, nor were non-Greeks related. This entire system of slavery had a major cultural and ideological influence on Greece, which was that people who worked with hands were looked down upon. Even those who did trade were looked down upon. That is, even trade was also associated with slavery. Only those people who worked with the mind were considered better and more respectable, who used to be wise, intellectual, and pure philosophers.